I've noticed we're losing subscribers. Not the YouTube kind, but the kind that swore they'd be in my life forever. Funny how that works. One day you're surrounded by people who claim to love you, and the next, you're watching them walk away like you were just another phase in their lives. By the way, if you're here, do me a favor, subscribe. It's free, and unlike some people in my life, you won't regret sticking around. She tried to take my house for $1, and guess what I did? I grew up knowing what it meant to struggle. My parents and I barely scraped by at times, surviving on rice and beans. Those tough years fueled my drive to be financially secure. I worked through high school, saved every penny, and by the time I moved out, I had $17,000 in savings. My husband and I made smart financial choices, and in 2015, we bought a house, a solid 4-bedroom home on a double lot, which we gradually improved over the years. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. Then there was Carrie. Carrie, who grew up with similar struggles but never seemed to learn how to manage money. No matter how many times I helped her budget, she always ended up broke. She spent without thinking and then expected others to bail her out. When she needed a place to live, I hesitated, but ultimately we rented our old house to her and 2 friends for an absolute steal, $750 total a month. Except the other 2 never made it. Before the lease was even signed, Carrie had driven them off by acting as if the house was hers. That should have been my first red flag. But I let her stay. For 4 years she paid ridiculously low rent. Even when I raised it slightly to cover increased bills, it was still well below market value. Then she got a great job at a university with amazing benefits. Did she finally get her finances under control? Of course not. She still blew through her paycheck, and at one point she even owed me $750 in back rent. Then came the moment that left me speechless. One day, out of nowhere, Carrie approached me with an offer. She wanted to buy my house. Not for the market value, not even for a fraction of it. She offered me $1 single. That was when I finally saw it. She had convinced herself that my house was already hers. After years of watching Carrie mismanage her money, overspend on junk, and even stash some of that junk in my house, my husband and I finally realized something. We weren't meant to be landlords. Between work, life, and everything in between, we didn't have the time or energy to keep dealing with the mess. And Carrie? She wasn't holding up her end of the rental agreement anyway. So, we made the decision to sell. But we weren't heartless. We didn't want to throw Carrie out with nowhere to go. We gave her plenty of notice, and she even attempted to buy the house from us. She started looking into loans, and at first it seemed like a solid plan. Until she changed her mind. Suddenly the house wasn't what she wanted. It was too big, she wanted land, and the reality of actually buying a home hit her hard. I even drove her to meet with realtors so she could check out other options, but every deal fell through. What? Because she had no savings and couldn't afford the 10% down payment required for a loan. And that's when the entitlement started. Since buying another house wasn't going to happen for her, she decided she'd just settle for mine. She latched onto a casual conversation we'd had years ago about a possible rent-to-own agreement, something that was never formalized, signed, or even discussed in depth. In her mind, that meant the 2.5 years of rent she had paid should be deducted from the sale price. I told her no. She then suggested we quitclaim deed the house to her, which, in plain terms, meant she expected us to just give it to her beyond what little she had paid in rent. She framed it as though she was doing us a favor since we were tired of being landlords. I told her absolutely not. And then came her final, most insulting offer yet. She looked me dead in the eye and said she'd buy the house for $1 single. At first, I thought it was some kind of bad joke. But when I realized she was serious, I was so angry I was shaking. I somehow managed to laugh it off, but inside I was fuming. And just when I thought she couldn't get more ridiculous, she actually suggested that we start paying her rent. Yes, you read that right. She wanted to charge us rent for storing some of our belongings in the garage, our own garage in our own house. That was the moment I knew. Carrie had completely lost it. By 2022, Carly had started dating Reggie, a 28-year-old retired Marine. They were in a long-distance relationship, alternating visits, when Carly casually mentioned to him that we were looking to sell the house. We threw out some potential numbers, the lowest being $100,000, but we made it clear that an appraisal and market value assessment would be needed. Reggie jumped at the opportunity and assured us he'd start the buying process in March or April of 2023. I was relieved. My husband was relieved. Even Carly was relieved. It looked like we finally had a solid plan. Some background on Reggie. At the time, he had a monthly government stipend of around $22,000 on top of his well-paying job, which Carly estimated to be between $4,500 to $5,000 a month. Money didn't seem to be an issue until it was. The excuses begin. When March and April rolled around, Carly and Reggie suddenly announced that he couldn't afford both his rent and a mortgage payment. He asked to push the buying process to October, when he planned to move in with Carly. Fine. We adjusted. Then things got worse. Before Reggie moved in, Carly tried illegally subletting a room, despite it being strictly prohibited in her lease. She claimed she'd pass some of the money to us, but the deal fell through and the friend never moved in. Then once Reggie did move in, he quit his job before even starting the purchase process. That meant the only proof of income he had was his military stipend, which even with a veteran's loan wasn't enough. At this point, we rewrote the lease with a new rental price of $1,000 per month, still well below market value. We also clearly stated that if they hadn't started the purchase process by mid-April 2024, we wouldn't be renewing their lease, nor would we allow month-to-month renting. We even agreed not to list the house on the market as a sign of good faith. The rapid-fire list of chaos since October. Reggie covered Carly's $750 in back rent. By November/December they backed out of buying the house. Their reason? They claimed the house required $150,000 in repairs, a laughable number considering I had already budgeted a full flooring replacement for under $15,000 and had recently repaired major bathroom damage for less than $500. They couldn't find another rental because they had 3 cats, so now they're staying. We told them, again, that we're not renewing the lease. They offered to buy the house for $150,000, far below market value. We politely declined, and then screamed into pillows. They constantly complain about being broke, yet Carly got 2 brand new tattoos and is taking a fully paid international trip at the end of March. Meanwhile, Reggie still doesn't have a job. The absolute final straw. We had to emergency install a water heater, which Reggie initially paid for. I agreed to reimburse him, and as of now, I only owe $500. Then Carly dropped the final bombshell. She quit her job. With her only source of income gone, she casually texted me and said we needed to renegotiate rent for this month and next. Oh. Then she made an even more absurd suggestion. She wanted to pay rent in food. She literally offered to cover part of her rent with groceries, knowing full well that she'd probably only give me a couple of meals and maybe $75 worth of food, instead of the $500 plus she actually owes. I was done. My patience? Gone. I jokingly replied that the electricity and insurance companies don't accept food as payment, so neither do I. She then countered, saying she could cover utilities in cash, but the rest she would still pay in food. I haven't responded. It's been a day and a half, and I won't. My final warning. If there's one thing I've learned from this mess, it's this. Never mix business and friends unless you know exactly who they are. If I had known what I was walking into, I never would have let Carly move in. Final update, they're finally gone. This entire ordeal has been exhausting, but I'm relieved to say that Carly and Reggie officially moved out on April 1st. No joke. They left the house in a complete mess, which wasn't surprising, but at least we didn't have to fight them in court to get them out. I'd rather deal with cleaning than dragging this out any longer. I ended up telling Carly's mom everything, showing her the texts, the manipulation, and the entitlement. She was furious, not just about the condition they left the house in, but also about how Carly had treated me and others throughout this whole situation. Carly, of course, tried to justify her actions. I confronted her after hearing from a friend that she had joked about intentionally leaving the house trashed out of spite. When I asked her why, she said it was because she was frustrated with me, claiming I didn't do enough to fix up the house while she lived there. This, despite the fact that I repaired everything that actually needed fixing. She also complained about my husband and me keeping some of our things in the garage, in our house, ignoring the fact that there was still plenty of space for her stuff. Not that it mattered, since her vehicles wouldn't have even fit in there anyway. They were all too long and non-functional. In the end, she had to junk 2 of them, despite claiming she had someone willing to store them for her. I don't understand her logic, and honestly, I'm done trying to. The last thing she said to me was that she was sorry. I don't believe she actually meant it. It felt more like an attempt to ease her own guilt rather than a genuine apology. But it doesn't matter anymore. This chapter is finally closed. On a brighter note, we're already working with a serious buyer who is ready to purchase the house for its actual market value. I've also started therapy to work on setting boundaries and breaking my people-pleasing habits. This whole experience was a hard lesson, but one I won't forget. Thank you to everyone who gave advice and support. It truly helped me get through this mess. The lesson here? Never mix business and friendship unless you fully understand who you're dealing with. Set firm boundaries and don't let guilt manipulate you into bad decisions. Trust actions, not just words. people will show you who they really are. On a positive note, we're already working with a serious buyer who is ready to purchase the house for its actual market value. I've also started therapy to work on setting boundaries and breaking my people-pleasing habits. This whole experience was a hard lesson, but one I won't forget. Does this story resonate with you? Have you ever had a similar experience? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you found this story valuable, like, share, and comment to help others avoid the same mistakes.